Hi guys, quick update here for Bitcoin, trying to understand what is going on. So I think Bitcoin and crypto are the hardest market to call, and that's why I've been back and forth. I think that there is a melt up going on. That would make the most sense. There's certainly the least number of assumptions, and all historical correlations have basically gone out the window. So an increase in the dollar, I still feel dollar goes significantly higher because of the euro dollar issue. That won't have any issue on gold, and silver's also going up. Now, we have this issue with Bitcoin where it appears we are in an impulse, and sooner or later, I don't know when that's going to happen, because of the confusion with the other markets, it would stand to reason eventually we're going to break 20,000. That would be a logical assumption given what's going on, given why none of these markets are selling off. And if you have a look at the linear chart, it looks as though it wants to break this descending line. So that in itself is a major issue. Okay, the higher the time frame of the trend line, the more significant the break. And you can read this. I mean, you're forcing it, but you can force a leading diagonal into 1 at 7.4. So as long as 7.4 holds, this impulse, this sort of this move appears to be in full flow. And the way that I like to read it, because I don't like this as an impulse, I would read that as a WXY truncation into here, and the impulse started from this low here. So yeah, that would suggest we don't see this low 3.8k for a while, because it's either going to go up straight from here or go up, fill the gap at 12k, consolidate, and then go up. Now, the reason I've been back and forth is really because Bitcoin's a very, very low market cap. But if there's panic buying across the board, they want to move into liquid assets. But the issue I also have is that a lot of people think it's 2017 for the altcoins, but actually, are any of the altcoins displaying 2017 behavior? If you take XRP, forget about this target here. I'm not too sure it gets down that low given what Bitcoin is doing. Obviously, the USD value on XRP is getting held up by Bitcoin, and that's the thing. A lot of these altcoins, their USD values are moving not because the altcoins are moving, it's because of Bitcoin, because half of their value is composed out of Bitcoin. But do you see this sort of 2017 and before? None of that is going on because the macro climate is it's a panic buy ready for this NASDAQ 14K, and then it's all over. And I think everything's all over then. As in every asset. I don't think there's any hedge there. I don't think. So I think it's very difficult to call any of these altcoins. Like Digibyte is a perfect example here. Obviously, I've been a very long-term admirer of this coin, but I know nothing about the fundamentals, and those who have been following me for a while also know that. So there's some talk about this only pumped because of the whole mining issue, because there was something to do with the miners, and it's cheaper to mine Bitcoin, it's cheaper to mine Digibyte. But if all of that is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, then you've got an ABC on your hands. So if people are just arbitrarily buying Digibyte here with the expectation that it goes higher, well, there are lower targets here. So it goes back to the whole, are you investing, are you trading? But in an investment, you would have some confidence that these altcoins are actually going to go up. But Digibyte, if this is an ABC, could easily be part of a much larger move down, couldn't it, right? Because we know that this C wave is going to be relative to this A wave. While the 1-to-1 gets you here, and the 1.618 of this C wave relative to the A gets you below 100 sats. Notice this low volume here, by the way, at 116 sats. Also notice there's no volume here in the profile below this level. And if this wasn't Digibyte, any coin that just had an arbitrary pump that just sells off after that, usually they just end up doing this and then just doing this for a long period of time. And Digibyte USD, it's not selling off right now, but yes, you could read all of this as a clean impulse. So let's just state the obvious here. If I can just find so that would be some kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But very clearly, Digibyte is in some kind of correction. So it's not just a case that you can say, right, you're going to buy here, we're going to go much, much higher. What if it continues to go lower? And then you can potentially improve your cost basis. So it's very, very difficult to call these altcoins with anything other than a short-term perspective, because I just don't feel I have that 2017 moment. If you're looking at the NASDAQ, that's a different story. NASDAQ's going vertical. So that's why I cover so much of tech stocks. That's what we do in the group. We don't just cover crypto, we cover whatever's moving, basically. And there's also one sector which I'll do a YouTube video on at some point as well. That sector I also like. So yeah, if you take your 1.618, well, that gets you much, much lower, 0.01139, whatever. So you can see here, even with Digibyte, it's a prime example how even the quote-unquote best coin is just dwindling away here, right? And yes, if we get a clean impulse out of here, then a clean 2, then you can say, right, that's a 1, that's a 2, 3, 4, 5. I think a lot of people, perhaps newer to this market, even newer than myself, because I've been around since the 20k high, a lot of people have sort of come in the last 2 years with expectations, and they're not really understanding what's going on in the fact that there's a melt up going on, and in a melt up nothing makes sense, everything goes up. But if you're some Italian bond manager, whatever, you're going to buy Bitcoin, you're not going to buy arbitrary altcoin, are you? So, and that's what happens in a melt up. That's why Apple and Microsoft are going vertical, much more so than other select tech stocks. Now, one thing just to note here, this is what we're watching in the group, which is the Ethereum BTC chart, which is really our marker. If we do get a quote-unquote altcoin season, this is obviously going to move. Now, there's a couple of counts. One count is that it's a 1, 2, 3 into here. This is a 4, and this is actually making a 1, 2, 3 all the way down. If we get down as low as this, that's a great target right there, 0.012, if not then 0.015. And the other count is that we have actually bottomed here, and this is a 1, 2, 1, 2, in which case the invalidation point is this level here, because obviously this 2 can't cross this 2. So really, you have a bearish invalidation here at this level, 0.026, and you have a bullish invalidation here. Now, Bitcoin at time of doing video is stabilizing here undercover below 10k, wanting to break that trend line. And looking on the futures, which by the way is the only interesting thing to note here is that the impulse looks a lot more clear in the futures. So maybe we should just start looking at the futures all day long, which is something that I'm now starting to do because the impulse looks a lot more clear. Anyway, the obvious target after here would be this gap fill. So looking at it, also, the other thing just to say is, historically, we don't tend to get an altcoin season over summer. It tends to be, fourth calendar quarter, November, December, October, January, then maybe in spring, but in around May or summer, May, June, July time, kind of like here. Do you see sort of, July 18, there wasn't really a lot going on during that time. As we got into September, October, we kind of got something. Similar sort of thing here, yes, December, and here, April, May, we got something, but then generally they downtrend, and obviously this occurred, we know, in October, fine, whatever. What was the high? Yeah, well, the high was here, and this occurred in May. So over the summer, we don't really tend to get a historical altcoin season. So if Bitcoin, the point being, if Bitcoin makes its way towards gap fill, towards that 12k gap fill, maybe even 13, 14k, that would suggest to me that the dominance is going to go higher. So this is the dominance that we are watching. Hard to sort of put an Elliott wave count on this, but it's made a new macro high here, if the macro being the sort of weekly. So that in itself is a good thing. It's probably going to break this descending line at some point. This kind of charges higher. Maybe the dominance gets as high as 81. I'm not saying that it is, but that's certainly a possibility. And obviously that's going to wreck the altcoins even more than they are being wrecked. So this is the issue. I think there's a lot of conflicting signals even in my head at time of doing video, and there has been back and forth. Is this a real bull market, or is this just the fact that everything's melting up? And Bitcoin, because it's the Apple, it's the Microsoft, it's the one which is going to make the most amount of sense. But then if everyone moves into Bitcoin, of course, you would have to sell altcoins to move into Bitcoin. And then maybe, I don't know, end of the year, Bitcoin then goes sideways. As it goes sideways, that's when we get an altcoin season. So it's extremely difficult to call this market. And I'm just being totally honest. And that's just my take. And, you can see here, Virgin real time is kind of moving. And this is something we discussed, is it worth, purely as a speculative play, just to say, look, the risk on Verge here is that it can go to zero and it can go bankrupt, right? That would obviously be the risk with any of these altcoins. But then what if you arbitrarily get a pump between now and Christmas? It's a risk reward thing, right? That's not to say you should mortgage your house and buy something, buy it. Bitcoin has to be 80-90% of your portfolio. But these altcoins, if you're of the opinion they're not going to go to zero, maybe it's worth just arbitrarily having a bit of a punt and buying at these low levels, and sooner or later you might get a pump. But that's all it is. It might just be a pump. To sort of say Verge is going to end up doing this, I think 2017 was a very, very different time. To say Ripple is going to go to $3 anytime soon, or Verge is going to do this. Even Digibyte, the way it's acting, it's very difficult. And if Digibyte is the only one which is going to go up, how does that make any sense? How is that an altcoin season? So I think the altcoins are extremely risky investments, and really I don't think it's a genuine altcoin bull market at all. I just think it's a very select select number of things which are moving, and in this particular asset class it's just Bitcoin. And if you have a look at the stock market, I mean, the two stocks that we've been long for a while are Apple and Microsoft, and there's a reason, because they're the two leaders and the leaders lead. And the whole point of looking at this Nasdaq every single day is because this is really going to tell us what's going to happen. I think this is the major index that we're watching it. Once this gets to 14k, I think a lot of these assets are going to top, or at least the stock market is going to top, and then maybe money then moves into bonds, gold, maybe even Bitcoin. Maybe this whole 20k move doesn't happen until the Nasdaq tops. That also makes sense. Okay, and I'm looking at this Nasdaq to top post Jan 21 basically. So post Jan 20th 21, when they announce the election result, whatever, when they do their thing. So you're looking at Easter 21. So maybe Bitcoin doesn't break 20k until the Nasdaq tops. Then money moves even more into the dollar. Then gold has its big run potentially. Then the yields go negative, and then maybe Bitcoin is alongside that. So I think it's a very difficult market. But to sort of say any of these altcoins right now, other than short-term speculative pumps, are going to do anything at all in the medium or long term as of this moment is very, very difficult. But obviously that's subject to change based on what we're seeing. So, but yeah, that just explains Apple and Microsoft. As a market tends to peak, did the same sort of thing here. I mean, Nasdaq's just doing a fractal of this basically, just copy and paste that onto here. But as a market tends to peak, leaders tend to lead, so you get a sort of a narrowing of breath, really. So that's why Apple and Microsoft are doing their thing, and that's why we sort of chose them. Anyway, going back to crypto, that's the situation is just what I've just said, really. So could just be a Bitcoin thing, and the rest of these altcoins go to zero. So it's very difficult. And BCH and BTC, this is looking very, very tasty, at these levels. But what do we expect to occur here? They're very depressed prices. Is BCH, I think it might go to these sort of levels, 21,500, 24,500. I mean, you're buying it at pretty much an all-time low. But then it has to be considered as just that. You're buying at an all-time low. The quote-unquote risk is very low. So, that's all I'm trying to say there. You're buying a low. So, but to get this kind of gigantic pump, or are we only going to get a small-time pump? Likewise, Litecoin, similar sort of thing. It's significantly depressed. But are we going to get a massive move in Litecoin? I've got it going into this box here. Is it just going to be a short-term thing? So that's the thing. These altcoins right now, they are offering great risk reward, but unfortunately your risk is that they go to zero, and your reward is that we get an altcoin season. But I just don't think it's that 2017 moment. That's why I've been so conflicting with what Bitcoin is doing, because it's not really made any sense. It's the least important market to me, because it's the one that makes the least amount of sense. Dollar going up, stock market first, then dollar, then bonds, then gold, then Bitcoin. That's the way it works in terms of confidence. And you always have to invest with where you think is the most confident move. I mean, part is something we got in yesterday, actually. that's doing okay. That might make an arbitrary pump into here, but yeah, that's it. And obviously XRP is something that I'm watching myself as well. It's at a 3-year low. So sooner or later we're going to get a move here, but when's it going to happen? But this is the issue. Do you want to jump in here to XRP? Now, you can't blame anyone for having a tickle, but it might just be a corrective bounce. Then we get this. But to say the XRP price is going to go from here, all the way back up to here at $3, it's very difficult. And I think, like I said, a lot of people have sort of jumped into this market trying to learn how to read a chart. Unfortunately, you're getting involved at a time where the rest of the market is in a really iffy place, and it's very difficult to learn how to trade, how to invest 12 years into a bull market with this sort of final blow off top and then this. So it's very difficult to learn how to trade and invest here. How do we sort of bin down here? It's a lot easier because everything's making sense. Everything's going up right now. Ironically, everything is going up from a melt-up perspective, but it's not normal fundamentals which are driving this market. And I think that is affecting a lot of people's sort of analysis and confidence. And, it's probably the worst time ever to learn how to trade, how to invest. Obviously, you can follow certain YouTube channels. Maybe I've got some old educational material, whatever. But that's not the point. It's a very iffy time, and actually just staying in cash for a lot of people, I think, is probably a very wise thing to do, because if something doesn't make sense, why would you want to risk any capital on it? That in itself doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, just looking at this, Take-Two, something just to watch. I believe they have earnings tomorrow or maybe on Wednesday, so that's just something to watch. I still think that moves higher. So yeah, bringing it back to Bitcoin then, that is my take. I think what's going on here, we have a melt up. Everyone's going to the most secure assets, the Apples, the Microsofts, the Golds, and Bitcoin. Bitcoin, we are saying now it's going to break 20k eventually. Maybe that happens this year. If not, maybe NASDAQ tops, and then you get the money into Bitcoin. And as for the altcoins, well, they are not, as of this moment, they can't be considered, I don't think, long-term investments. And number two, to automatically think we're going to get a 2017 altcoin season out of nowhere, I don't think that's the case, especially over summer. Now, maybe this changes as we approach, if Bitcoin continues higher and this quote-unquote bearish count sort of works out. So just to draw this count for everyone, make sure everyone's sort of looking at what I'm looking at here. The count being, that's a 1, that's a 2, 3 into here, 4 flat. If this plays out, maybe then, I don't know, around maybe August, September, we get some kind of impulse. Maybe we break this descending line and then we have something. Well, that then changes things. But I can just go off what I'm looking at right now, which is why I'm so hesitant to give any long-term targets, because I don't think, given what the stock market is doing, I think it's very difficult. Like, where did this triangle come out from? I was of the opinion this was the 4. And this is the thing, I'm very good at this. 89% of the time I'm actually right in this market, much higher than most other people. But we were running this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And look at what the market gave you. So you have no choice but to immediately react. And obviously here we got out 3 days into it and we got in at the lows. That's not the point. You have to react because the analysis has gone out the window. So analysis only goes to so far. And analysis is not making money. There's a process you have to go through between the analysis, figuring out where things are going, and then actually trading and investing in that move. Obviously now we've had the whole correction, we've had the ABCD, so now it makes sense, right? This must be the 4 because this does not look complete, and the least number of assumptions are that this ABC cannot happen now, so it has to be the fact that this is now that mythical wave 5 that I've been talking about for years, and that then completes our 5 cycle, because this is obviously not a corrective leg. This is just one big 5-wave impulse. So that makes the most amount of sense, because as I say in the group, the likelihood of something occurring is proportional to 1 over the number of assumptions that you make. So right now, the bullish count makes sense, least number of assumptions, hence it's the most likely. But just something to think about there with the stock market. I think it's very, very difficult to trade and invest in this market, and to give anything other than, let's say, I don't know, the next 6 weeks. It's very difficult. Obviously, with certain markets, I can make more of a confident call, but honestly, Bitcoin, crypto, especially some of the altcoins, I just refuse to give anything longer than just a short-term target. I don't think it's wise as well. I think people sort of watch these videos, they don't really understand analysis, or the fact that this is just educational purposes. Some people sort of miss the point, and thinking this is 2017, I just don't think it is. Anyway, that's my honest take. If you like what we're doing here, you can join the group. If not, then I'll try and do videos whenever I can. And keep safe out there.